Alright, to install the insulation, we start with the ones that are labeled mid-horizontal. So this is the midline that we're calling mid-horizontal. This is lower, medium, and top. So if they say lower bay 1, it's right here. If it says lower bay 2, it's right here. Lower bay 3 is next, and so on and so forth as you work your way back to the through the van. If it's labeled anything that says 0.5, so some of these labels have the old labeling system, so it actually might say 1.5 or 2.5. Disregard the 1 part of that. If it just has a 0.5, it'll fit in any one of these channels that go in between the bays. Okay. To put these mid-horizontals in, you want to start on one side or the other of the underneath the window box here, because you're going to be sort of snaking it through. Now, a trick to making it go a little easier is to cut them in half. And what we like to do is double them up. The bottom and the mids get 2 layers of thinsulate because there's enough space in that cavity. The mid and tops and ceiling only have room for 1 layer. So we're going to take 2 of them, and from the midpoint here, I'm going to stuff this towards the back. And if you don't cut it in half, you'll basically be starting from this far bay and snaking it all the way through. But I'm going to stuff it up, pull it over, kind of push it down until I can reach it from this side. And it will fold up and extend towards the aft side after you get it up there. Okay? And then just do the same thing with the other half, working back and sending it to the middle. It's a really basic operation, so you won't need to see the whole installation of it. But again, just follow where the bays are labeled, stuff the insulation in there. When you're putting your tape on, it's best not to cut it with scissors or a knife, because you actually kind of want that torn edge. It makes it easier to peel the backing off. But basically the process of this is I set one on the top side of the bay, and I also set one to the lower side of the bay. And I put my first layer on, and then I do the same thing to put my second layer over it. And with the center here, if you have a cargo van, you don't have a window here, I'm just laying strips vertically every foot or so across here, and then on the front upper part I put a little bit more tape up there, but it's really not critical. One side note is, don't necessarily do your ceiling if you're going to wait another day or drive your vehicle around before you put your paneling in. Because over time, or if it's really hot, it can drop down and start swinging down. The paneling will help hold it there and give the tape time to cure and really bite into it. Okay, so for the back rear doors, you're going to get one full size. There's a lot of small bays in here, so to cut this up and label it and make it make sense, it was a real challenge, and basically nobody could figure out the puzzle back here. So basically we just give the full size, and it's up to you to cut it however you want to stuff this back door. And that's basically the way we approach the back door. Let's move over to the sliding door, and I'll show you a little insight on that. All right, the ones that are labeled sliding door, they'll actually have a white line on it. That white line is also on the ceiling, and you'll cut that line, stop where it stops. And the way this piece works is you're sliding the small end into this channel down here, while the top end will tuck back into the top part of the channel like this. If you have a 2019, there may be some areas where you want to cut here to get around your your mechanical door if you have that option. And also they have a little bit of a different setup here. And basically I just like to tuck this behind these wires, and right here on this corner you can go ahead and clip that. This area up here, again, to kind of keep the kit less complicated, you can just go ahead and cut from the scrap piece that's supplied with it. All the insulation kits are supplied with a piece of scrap, so you can go ahead and cut a length that's this long and tuck it up from this side and stuff this upper part of the door. All right, with the ceiling, again, you'll see that cut line, and what I prefer to do is I also cut about the width of that speed strut that we put into the ceiling. I cut the width of that off of one end, and I'll drop that over the top into the channel of that speed strut. And then when you cut your line here, this becomes the piece that goes between the speed strut and the wall of the van. And of course, the middle section from this line here goes in the middle, and you can cut the end off for the speed strut of this side and then cut your line. And that's the way the ceiling goes together. Of the thinsulate rolls are kind of welded together. They're not on all of the pieces that are cut. Some of it's just when it comes off the roll in the factory. So I kind of break it to fluff it and let it get so it can attain full loft. And I just tuck it in right over the top here and let it sort of stuff down in that track, and it lofts up nice and tight. That way, when I put my center in, and these guys, depending on what you want to do with them, some people actually cut the ceiling panel and will reinstall factory lighting, but you can sort of tuck it back up out of the way. And these center pieces will fill in the gap between the two speed struts. And ultimately, they'll be touching and connecting with that other piece of thinsulate that you put up there. On the side here, you should then have enough to reach the edge, and if it's floating down a little bit right here, that's actually good. It'll make the connection to the wall.